Alright folks, how are we doing? It's your Bash, it's Orna. It's another new event dropped by Northern Forge. It's August 2022 and we have the first ever Draconian Era event. This is something brand new. I really actually enjoying the way they've gone about this. Unlocking stuff behind codex entries is something kind of fresh that we've not seen before. So I'm going to explain exactly what you need to do to unlock everything that you can in this event, and we'll talk about the raids, the bosses, the followers, their gear and stuff, and yeah, have a bunch of fun. We've also got the mischievous hurricanes coming back later on this month, plus, you know, the usual Horn event, experience event, lucky event, etc, etc. So let's start off then. What is the Draconian Era? You might have heard, if you're not surrounded a lot by the Discord and the regular stuff. Okay, in the game it says you need to complete these guys' storyline by completing their codex entries, and that's exactly it. You start off with the lower boss, tier 5 boss, and you complete the codex entry. That unlocks the second boss, and so on and so forth until you've unlocked all 9 bosses. And then once you unlock the bosses, each boss, they can only then, when you have completed their codex entry, will that follower show up for you in bestiaries. So there's a slight difference in how it works, because you can see bosses that you haven't unlocked out in the world, and also you can see them in dungeons hosted. If you're doing party dungeons, you can see them in those party dungeons hosted by somebody with those codex entries completed. However, you will never see the follower in a bestiary if you haven't unlocked this codex entry. So I am, you know, the back of the line when it comes to codexing and, you know, having fun with codexing. I haven't touched it at all, or haven't put any effort into any codexing, you know, just the ones that happen naturally. But I actually had a ton of fun. It took me maybe 5 or 6 dragon roosts to actually complete the codexing storyline, so it doesn't take that long, okay? And that's going all the way to tier 10. You know, you're going to be sitting there a few times waiting for some of these dragons to use other skills and stuff, but honestly it was not too bad. And once you do unlock everything, you know, it feels good because you put some effort in, and now you can unlock these rewards, which is, well, the reward is you get to kill them as many times as you can. So what it does, let's start then. So the first one you can find is Lotan the Coiled One. This is tier 5. And Lotan, as I said, this will be the first one you find in Dragon Roost. Of course, Dragon Roost is the best place to find these. If you have double Unfelled Concords at tier 10, it's got a 1 hour cooldown on those. Otherwise, yeah, you want to try and find good dungeon spots with a few roosts with your mates and stuff. So tier 5. So if you don't know anything about codexing at all, basically what you need to do is be in the battle, and, well, you need to see the mob use all of its skills. Then you also need to get all of its drops, and when the mob has immunities and status immunities and stuff like that, you need to make sure that you get them checked off. Okay, so the codex on the website doesn't actually have those, so if you bear with me one moment, I'll bring those up. Okay, so you can see Lotan actually has a couple of resistances and weakness to dragon. In fact, all of these new dragon bosses are weak to dragon, and they're mostly resistant to fire and lightning as well. The ability here, Great Dragon, that's actually a passive, so you just need to see them in a dungeon once, and then, yeah, you need to see them use their different skills, get the drops, and you need to try and proc the status immunity. So for example, Lotan has Rot. If we go to the next one, Ritra has immunity to Paralyzed. Then you go into the Demon, immunity to Burning and Blight. So, you know, it's really interesting, first of all, the kind of mythos surrounding all of these new dragons. You know, it's all coming from different areas of the world, different mythologies. Like, so Lotan is coming from the Levantine, Ritra is coming from kind of Vedic and Hindu. He was the personification of drought, evil, and chaos. Then we have Agatha Demon. Sounds very Greek, and it is. The personal companion spirits comparable to the Roman genii, who ensured good luck, health, and wisdom. Probably the nicest dragon of the lot, apart from Zeltis, the friendly one. Zeltis is a household spirit in Lithuanian mythology. And then we have Illuyanka, made of stone. Got that nice petrified immunity. Best way to get petrify in the Codex entry is probably the Gargoyle Pet, tier 5. It's a superior rarity, so it should be very fast to pick one up. And then yeah, just wait till it procs. You know, a bit of action rate as well. Get you that. You can of course use like a Stone Dagger or a Cockatrice Breath skill as well to try and get that petrification. But yeah, Illuyanka from the Hittite mythos was a serpentine dragon slain by Tarhuns, the Hittite god of sky and storm. So not a fan of Storm Force. Then we have tier 9, Bash, the hungry one. Drops a nice weapon. So from this point we start to see a few more status immunities. They do get kind of harder to codex as you go along, but Bash is actually Chinese dragon, python-like giant snake that ate elephants. So that's why it's the hungry one. Then we have also another tier 9, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered one. Similar kind of immunities, a few more spells as well. And okay, yeah, if you're looking to get the immunities and resistances and weaknesses, you need to use a skill with the element, basically. And of course, Ultima is the easiest way to do it. If not, you can use some Omni skills or, you know, the 1x1 skills for lower level players. But yeah, it sounds Quetzalcoatl as quite obviously Aztec, literally meaning serpent of precious feathers, but allegorically meaning wisest of men. And moving on to tier 10, we have the mountain man, Gornish, son of mountains. This is actually coming from Russian folktales. Was a dragon or serpent or human-like character with dragon-like traits. And okay, we'll come back and talk about the gear. But this guy is probably one of the hardest ones I found to codex because it likes to spam Divine Bastion a lot. So yeah, a good way to try and get it to not spam Divine Bastion is to get your own health lower, and then that is technically, from what I've heard anyway from the pro codexers, that will prevent it using Divine Bastion all the time. And then finally we've got Ymir Amphithea, the final tier 10 boss. And of course Ymir, the final boss, had to be from Norse mythology, of course. Also known as Orgelmir, the first being, a giant created from the drops of water that formed when the ice of Niflheim met the heat of Muspelheim. And you might have noticed that Ymir's drops are basically tier 10 versions of all the other dragon weapons. So these are the bosses. You start off with Lotan, complete the codex entry there. That will unlock Vritra in dungeons. And a quick way to check if you've completed the codex entry, you know, if you're actually in dungeon doing it, is to leave the dungeon and go back in. That will update the codex entry. I wouldn't recommend doing that if you're traveling in a moving vehicle, but if you're at Waybessa or something, that's fine. And Agatha Demon has a hammer, tier 7. And okay, so how does codexing work if you're in a party, by the way? So if the boss uses a skill, you'll get that codex entry, but you have to then try and attack to get the weaknesses, resistances, and the status immunities yourself. So the only thing that gets shared is the abilities. But that's probably the hardest thing to get, to be honest. Okay, I think we can start checking the gear now. And then, as we said, once you unlock, or once you complete the codex entries, that will then allow you to find these guys in bestiaries. So that's definitely something you're going to want to do if you want to pick them up. So there's 9 new bosses in total. Whoops, we'll come to that screenshot later. That screenshot's probably going to be outdated by the time this goes out, but let's check the gear then. Starting with, yeah, Lotan, the coiled one. One thing before we start, I'll mention Drake Blight, which is a new kind of status. Well, there's a whole bunch of new blight effects, and most of them, what they do is once you have like an elemental blight, you'll see, or a Drake Blight, it will make you take blue damage to that element. So it can definitely hurt. Now, Drake Blight by itself is kind of unique because Drake Blight is basically a new type of blight. It works kind of the same way. It actually gives you a dot, whereas all the other elemental new blights do not. So Earth Blight, it doesn't give you a dot like Rot. It just makes you take extra earthen damage. And the thing about Drake Blight is it's only curable with a Drake Blood. So once you start doing a few of these dungeons, you will start picking up plenty of Drake Blood. But at the beginning, it can be quite annoying. If you are playing a class typically found at low HP, you might realize that you died and without knowing it. Because there's no kind of like vignetted different colored effect. Like when you're normally affected by a dot, it will make the screen green if you're rotted or poisoned, for example. There's nothing like that currently. So yeah, use Drake Blood to do that. So what do we have then? We've got the Coiled Shield, which is a tier 5 shield. It's like an upgraded kind of Griffin Shield, you could say, and gives you dragon resistance, but also gives you, you have the normal Bastion, which normally gives you extra defense, but these shields gives you even extra defense on top of that. You won't see it as a proc or like a buff, but it does give you extra defense. One thing to say, a lot of the new gear is kind of similar to Amity effects, which we've seen so far, which is kind of cool. So then you go into Vitra, which drops an interesting charm. We get these 3 immunities: Paralyzed, Stunned, Petrified. So it's a nice mix of the Steady Pendant, and I think it's the first time you get Petrify immunity before tier 8, which is quite nice. So it's not too bad. The tier 10 version also has a bunch of HP and mana on it. I'm not sure if this codex actually shows you exactly all of the stats. So never mind. We'll continue on. Agoth Demon drops the Red Demon Hammer, which is pretty cool. Good adornment slots. Does extra damage to ward. So as a warrior class, I think you have to be warrior to use these. Does extra damage to ward, which is quite nice. No reduces some stats. So pretty solid stats for tier 7 as well. A bit of ward on the weapon as well. So it's actually pretty nice. And the good thing about all of these new items is that it's very easy materials. It's all like Draconite and pure Draconite, etc., which is super nice. Then we have Zaltis, which has a really cool staff, which gives you HP recovery per turn for free. I think it's 3%, at least the tier 10 one is. Also get ward on it, nice amount of slots. Runestone and pure Draconite to upgrade that, which is super easy. Then we move on to tier 8. What do we have? Iluyanka. Anything here? So the Cliffside Cuirass, again giving you Petrify immunity and dragon resistance. Low slots, but okay, the stats are pretty good. It's like I guess it's like a special cockmail if you want to call it that. You occasionally get the chance to get protection from a hit that would take 100% of your maximum HP. I can't tell you exactly what the rate is, but it's definitely there. So maybe nice for raiding at those mid tiers, can give you, allow you to go a little bit deeper into some raids. And let's move on to tier 9. We have Bash, that drops a nice one-handed sword with ward on it. Actually really, really nice. You can compare this, I guess, to the Atgeir, but it's kind of an in-between an Atgeir and lots of adornment slots. Okay, dragon element, but for I think for raiding at tier 9, really good for warriors. and any of the god classes if you're running melee. Then Quetzalcoatl has a nice two-handed scythe, which is pretty cool. I have a lot of dormant slots, ward and crit, and also its kind of special ability is that it gives you extra faction element damage as well. So again, normally you get 25% extra bonus damage for your faction element. This will give you extra on top of that. Just like some Amity, can't remember the name of the Amity effect, but it's there. Slice can cause bleeding, the offhand effect. And this should be pretty good as well with the buff Zweihander spec. And then let's finally move on to tier 10, and this is really where the good sauce is. So Gorianch drops these new trialing weapons, which are two-handed. They're all two-handed for each kind of melee, mage, or thief type, and it's kind of what you expect for two-handed. It's like the two-handed version of the questing stuff in kliktujoel. Bit of extra stats, bit of ward, and it also gives you Orn and gold bonuses as normal, by the way. I'm not sure it actually says that here, but it does give you those bonuses. It also gives you extra bonus when you complete memory hunts, which is super cool. Little toast, completing a memory hunt of his own. And okay, it's roughly on par if you're using one questing weapon. If you're using dual wielding two questings, then that will give you more Orns, more rewards than these trialing weapons, but definitely something to pick up. And it's the same for the staff and the bow. And then finally we have Ymir, who kind of drops tier 10 versions of most of the equipment we just talked about. I wonder if the charm shows, so the charm shows the HP mana, which is actually pretty juicy if you didn't pick up a good Carl's Ring, for example. But this one comes with immunities. The Cliffside Cuirass, kind of. This was kind of a strange one. There's no ward, not a lot of ward. In fact, no ward apparently. Petrify immunity. Potentially the worst item here. Let's go down. So the Ymir Coiled Shield, this is actually pretty decent. This is like an upgraded Mighty Griffin Shield, so if you're using that shield for any kind of your dragon res, then try and pick one of these up because it gets extra stats on it. So potentially not for swashies, but for everybody else. Definitely a really good pickup. Then we've got the Ymir Staff. Again, this HP recovery is pretty cool, so for those, heretics, deities, I guess Beowulfs as well, you can proc those Zerks, and if you pair this up with, Amity that restores health, or missing mana, you've got passive health recovery. Super nice. Let your pet do the work. And then we come to, the Jewel of Creation, which is like Jewel of the End and Saturn's Eye combined together. The 1% ward, as long as you find a superior quality or more, that goes to 2%. And then you've got higher HP and mana than Jewels of the End, bit of defense resistance, and you have the attack and magic as well. So these are really, if you manage to farm a few of these this month, that's really okay for tier 10 players. That's going to be a really high, one of the main target farm items. I think myself I found 2 legendaries so far, so pretty chuffed with that. Then we've got the Ymir World Eater. This is like a pound land finesse greatsword. Less adornment slots, a bit less ward, a bit less attack. But it's still pretty good. So if you didn't find a finesse greatsword, you might have more chance of finding this thing, especially if you're managing to get some good party runs in. Cheap materials as well. And we've got the Ymir Brilliant Feathers. This is the highest amount of adornment slots on one item in the game. I think it goes up to 16 at Godforge. Ward, bit of base crit, bit of attack. Again, the same alignment damage with your faction effect. any kind of attack build, especially with the Zweihander getting the buff of he's got the sweep skill now. Yeah, I think this will be something everybody will try and pick up. Certainly myself. And then yeah, you got the Agadethron hammer, which is, from what I've heard, kind of like a poor version of Gungnir that, well, you can do damage to your point of war. So, okay. If you get a good one, you don't have anything, why not? Two-handed as well. So there we have the bosses. Now, if you haven't run any kind of party runs in Dragon Roost yet, try and do it, because one thing I haven't mentioned, and you may have noticed in the background, all of these new bosses can Godforge. From tier 5 to tier 10, they can all Godforge. So technically that means you can actually see the tier 5 boss if you are a tier 4 character. So you could honestly Godforge some gear at tier 4, which is just crazy. More realistically, you know, if you're kind of tier 8 and above, that's kind of the normal range that you actually start accumulating enough materials to Demon Forge items. God forging is the act of, we think the rate is around 1 in 300, 1 in 400. Basically, you need to have a Demon Forge item equipped, and then any boss you see with the kind of golden aura behind them has a chance to God forge it. Now, when you're running these dungeons, you'll see heaps of these in a single dungeon. So I had two God forges in one dungeon yesterday. Pretty crazy. Gonna try and, yeah, it's a really good month to God forge pretty much everything. So let's move on to the pets then. We go to the Codex page. So as we said, got to unlock the Codex entry first, and then that will allow you to find the pet in the dungeon. Okay, this could do a little bit. Let me bring these up one moment. Okay, so starting with Lotan tier 5. I believe all of these pets are actually legendary rarity as well, by the way, before we get started. So Lotan is not too bad at tier 5. You do get the Drake Blight, so kind of pairs well with doing Blight Strike. If you are a Dragoon, actually a good choice for sure. But you know, at these tiers, not so much to talk about. You'd say Ritter is slightly better. It's actually got 3 extra dragon attacks. So if you do get that Drake Blight on an enemy, and all of its dragon skill is going to be doing more damage. Sleep as well, I guess it goes with the color. Tier 7, you start to get the fire stuff come out. So you can see you got Fire Blight and also Meteor, Flame 3. Maybe I would have liked to see 1 extra dragon skill just for the Drake Blight. Tier 7. For most players, it's not going to be better than Twilight Wisp at tier 7. Similar goes for Zeltis, although it does look super cool. Holy Blight, I don't think anybody's going to use this. Illuyanka then at tier 8. Does have Stone Stare, which the difference is Stone Stare is the petrification rate is not as high as like if you're using the Great Cockatrice or the Gargoyle pet. So if you're using it for that, I would maybe think again. Do have Frost in there, so can put Freeze. It's more at tier 9. Bash is actually pretty good for Bahamut, I reckon. Got the Drake Blight, and then Beast Strike 3 and Lucis Naturate 2 are actually solid skills. Drain 3 as well. So this could be an option. You have to see for yourself how it compares to Nidhogg. Quetzalcoatl. This is this pet has kind of caused the Northern Forge to deal very heavily on Ultima. Basically, yeah, you see you can prop 4 different blights. Then it's got like the Omni skills there to kind of do extra damage on that. So technically, really good pet. And if you get all those blights on a raid boss, it means you can do something ridiculous like this. Big Forg, shout out to Big Forg, Gorge C, or John Egbert, and the crew here managing to kind of show the ridiculousness of Ultima. If you aren't aware, Ultima has actually been nerfed on the back of these guys, and the way that it interacts with elemental weaknesses. So thanks very much. Then we got the tier 10 pets. This guy, Son of Mountain, this is actually a really cool pet. So we get Divine Bastion, and then you get Transference 3 as well. So, you know, Divine Bastion and Trans 3. Ward regen, really nice ward. This is actually a really solid pet for ward management. Also can proc Drake, no, not Drake Blight, Dark Blight, okay. And then you've got Ymir as well, which I believe is actually getting buffed today, 4th of August. So Prisma Blight can proc any of those elemental blights. And then these are spells we've not seen before. So Flame 7. I wonder how much this would cost in an Arcanist. Probably about 100 billion gold. But I think these do extra damage when the elemental blight is proc, so it will do more damage on the back end. So now these kind of talking about these pets kind of ties in nicely with, I guess, the raid, the main raid gear for this month. So starting with tier 5, the Tatzelworms, quite an interesting. These mobs were actually added last month, at the end of last month, in dungeons and stuff, and they were actually the precursor to the raid this month, which is cool. So, pretty elemental based raid, quite a lot of health as well at tier 5, so if you are those lower levels, try and get a little bit of elemental resistance, and yeah, try and smash these with your kingdom mates. The gear is absolutely fine based on your usual event raid stats. The stats are much higher than usual, and you can get a bit of dormant slots. And the thing to note about these is there's something new again. Wearing this armor will improve the relationship between followers and Valhallan classes, allowing them a greater chance to choose the right action for your situation. So basically, they've done a lot of work on follower AI, and wearing these gear is supposed to make your AI even smarter. So, you know, if your Ymir pet, for example, procs the Lightning Blight, it will have a greater chance to use the Storm 7 spell rather than Earth spell, for example. That's the kind of idea. And all the Tatzelworms gear is basically the same. There's no kind of other different effects, and they all give Drake Blight immunity, which is currently the only place to get Drake Blight immunity, as well as Orochi with the Fey Hellfire, which is like the tier 8 versions of the tier 5 gear. Yeah, Orochi is basically the big, it's like Tatzelworms. They kind of melded into one and formed Orochi. Yeah, Orochi, who breathed life to the diligent Tatzelworms, was lost to Morgan's curse. So tier 5, if you're lucky, you might get some good gear if you're leveling up tier 5, tier 6. Once you get to tier 8, and Valhallan classes, you know, you can get the match up with the what's it called, the Battle Master, not Battle Master. And so you get Dragon Knight, the class, and the Beastmaster. There we go, the Beastmaster spec as well. So from like tier 7 onwards is normally when you can start focusing. Okay, the Dragoon is also a Valhallan class. But let's have a look at this stuff. And it's more of the same. You know, there's a nice bit of storyline, but with the Fey Hellfire stuff, it's the same idea. It's mainly for Valhallan classes, allowing your pet a greater chance to choose the right action for your situation. And I'm pretty sure whether it's the garb and stuff, it's the same idea. Again, this is the only other place to get the Drakeblight immunity so far. And again, the stats and stuff, not too bad. Maybe this here could have done with a couple more dormant slots, I don't know. But probably if you're a higher tier player, maybe you pick something up if you're lucky. Again, the raid is quite fab, but you can do some damage to it. Looking at the tier 10 raid then, Arisen Quetzalcoatl, from the high skies to the low lakes. She is reborn, perhaps coming as an Other Realms raid. Now, just before we get into the gear, I want to say how annoying this skill is. Tempest 2 and Grand Tempest. So, Wind Magic. So this gives you a chance to proc Windswept on you, and Windswept basically, it probably drops your crit rate by like, honestly I want to say like 99%, or I don't know exactly what the numbers are. It might be 90, it might be 100%, something like that. And it's quite funny because literally last week Northern Forge made a change to Bloodshift, which allowed, which prevented health coming from, which prevented health recovery completely, which was mainly targeted for classes with recharge, want to use crit-based builds. And then they bring in Windswept, which you can't get any immunity to. Panacea doesn't cure it, nothing cures it. Dispel, Cleanse, nothing cures it. And they released it with a 3% drop-off, so there's only a 3% chance for this status to drop off your character. No other way to get rid of it. And they have listened, they are actually reducing the severity. I think they're making it 15%, if I remember correctly. But yeah, that can't go up fast enough. As far as I'm aware, there's still no way to get immunity to Windswept, so it's pretty new. Otherwise, the rest of the skills, yeah, it has Ultima, but with Amities you can reduce that damage quite a lot these days. You definitely want some dragon resistance, plenty of gear this one to get some dragon resistance as well. But I'll say we'll start off then with something pretty cool which we haven't seen before. Is like basically Beowulf targeted gear. So the leg wraps, the boots, the headdress, and where is the chest? What's the chest called? Sky Mail, I think. Yeah, Valhallan classes, yeah. So overall the gear, it has something special, well, for most class types, Mage, Warrior, Thief, and now Valhallan. And basically all of the Valhallan stuff is more of the same as the Hellfire gear. It gives you greater AI, follower AI. Now you'll need to follow the pro Beowulfs and how they kind of look into the gear to see exactly how many Fallen Sky pieces you want for your pet. I'm sure you don't need 3 pieces, but if it really makes your pet that good, you might want to certainly at least get pieces to use in the future. Lower dormant slots, but bit of ward. Each slot has the same immunities to the elemental blights. So, I mean, regardless of class, so all the different boots have the same immunity, all the chests have the same immunity. But it's really cool to see Beowulf actually getting gear specific for Beowulf, for sure. And I guess also for summoners in the future, right? Because the summoner spec is coming, summoner class line is coming. And okay, right now Valhallan classes, I don't know if the summoner will have a Valhallan type class, but you would expect anything that boosts your follower would also affect summoners. I have no idea. Now the next interesting thing is, if you look at, let's look at warrior gear. Sky Mail. So the helmet, and this is something new. Helmet allows you to see slightly further. So the value is 10%, you get 10% extra view distance. Now mages have the same extra bonus here. So literally you don't need to get any quality on this, you just stick this in your world loadout. If you're Gilgamesh, Beowulf, or Deity, and then obviously the mage can also get one as well. and then you're suddenly like half a realm shifter, which is good, which is cool, I guess. Now the warrior legs give you 1 ward turn per turn in battle, so it's basically like you won't lose ward turns. You only need to use like ward turn once, and then boom, that's you. Like the ward turns won't go down, which is pretty cool. Haven't seen that kind of effect before. And then the chest, Fallen Sky Mail. Oh, that was the wrong one. Fallen Sky Armor. That's what we want. Gives you additional ward protection. Sorry, I don't have the value of the number. I believe it's between 5 and 7%. And yeah, pretty good. You're gonna have to, I guess you're gonna want to kind of pair these with amities that give you the same effect, and that might save you having to cast Divine Bastion, for example. Okay, let's look at mage gear then. You need the robe, the hood, and the shoes. Well, we'll start with the hood. As we said, allows you to see slightly further. That's 10% extra view distance. The chest. Spells that enemies are weak against will deal additional damage while wearing this robe. So it ties in with like the vulnerability, amity, which if you're doing blue damage, it will deal even extra damage. Pretty cool. And then the boots makes your spells cost more mana. So can be good, can be bad, depending on your situation. You'll have to play around that. Not sure how much use those particular boots will get. We've got the garb, the cowl, and the boots. So moving on to finally realm shifter stuff. And of course deity, because deity can wear everything, including Valhalla stuff, by the way. Deity can wear all the Valhalla gear as well. So the garb is the same as the mage then. Skills that enemies are weak against will deal additional damage while wearing this robe. The cowl will make critical hits slightly more effective. So I was testing this earlier. I reckon it's 10% more critical effectiveness, which is not bad, I guess. Thing is, it's low, kind of low dormant slot, so if you're using it maybe on Swash, not too sure. And the boots, when wearing these boots, one will deal additional damage to an opponent's ward. So, you know, I guess the realm shifter really, apart from the chest piece, yeah, no, maybe they're all the same actually. So they each have one piece of gear which does something your class doesn't, and then 2 pieces of gear which kind of, you know, do the same thing that your class does. Because yeah, realm shifter already does extra damage to ward, and then deity can get all the benefits in the world. Just pick and choose. So anyway, regardless, you know, it's nice to see some cool new stuff. The stats aren't anything special. The dormant slots are quite low, so it's kind of be more kind of niche use cases. But you know, as usual with event gear, you will want to pick stuff up when it comes. And overall, that's pretty much the Draconian Era event. Remember, the big thing is about codexing, unlocking those bosses. They do start appearing out in the world a lot, so even if you've not codexed, let's say the tier 6, if you see a tier 8 out in the world, you can codex that, and that will all of a sudden be unlocked for you, by the way, as well. So yeah, really cool event. I'm enjoying it. I've done so many dragon roosts, chasing those jewels of creation. Let me know if you've got any questions down below as well about this event. If you're struggling with like codexing, quick hint, for the later bosses you want Sleep Dart, Stun Dart. For everything else you want like Great Mimic's Mischief. If you have 2 Nagadine belts, that improves your chance of proccing the status. And obviously Assassin is the same thing if you can afford to spec swap Gargoyle Pet for the petrification. And yeah, Great Mimic's Mischief for proccing those effects, or you can use the Sorcerer wild skills, or I forgot what the name is, but the Unrelentless Magic or something, like Fulmination, Cataclysm. Those have extra high proc rates for the elemental effect. So let me know if you're enjoying this as much as I do, as much as I am. I'm sure a lot of you are. We've got lots of kind of dungeon parties going on in Orna Legends server. Big thanks, of course, to all the Arisen Orna Legends for supporting my channel and the website and the Orna Legends Discord as well. And big shout out to Shirley Lachez Textiles for making me this awesome little macrame poster of my Legionnaire sprite. That's super cool. Absolutely solid. That goes on my wall. It's the only decoration I have in the flat that's mine. So what can you expect from myself video wise this month? Well, Zwei Fencer. It's sweeping everywhere. Had a bit of fun with it, realm shifter and stuff, so we'll bring those videos very, very soon. Otherwise, again, if you've got any questions, hit me up in Discord, mods, there's lots of helpful people there, or any comment below. Do my best to answer that as quick as possible. Thank you very much for watching, hope this was helpful, and we'll see you in the next video. Ciao!